going to move on now to Kay, and Kay Stewart is our incoming Lieutenant Governor for District 23, and she picks up the mantle in at the Hamburg Convention. And Kay, am I right that you've just finished doing some governor training in Chicago?
Yeah, well, half and half. Yes, governor training did occur in Chicago, but I didn't get there, so I spent 3 all-nighters doing it online.
Important. But anyway, so
she's the incoming governor.
Oh, sorry, the
incoming governor, not.
What did I say? What did I say? COVID brain.
Lieutenant governor. She's the incoming governor.
Kay will be the incoming governor for District 23. She's currently the lieutenant governor-elect, and so she'll be taking on the mantle. And I love Kay's avatar, which you will see there on the screen, and her background is in
Carol, before you go on, I'd just like to explain that that avatar was drawn for me by one of my PhD students. Clearly talented in more ways than one.
And I thought there was a lovely link here, because Eugene had been at Monash University.
Yes.
You were at Monash, and I thought, my goodness, we've got, the Monash Alliance here, which is wonderful. So anyway, Kay, I'll stop the share. Did you have a PowerPoint that you were going to share, Kay, or?
No, I'm just going to talk.
Okay, that's fine.
And you'll forgive me if I look down, because I have, from my academic career, I'm used to talking in 10-minute or 50-minute grabs. And so I've tried to be disciplined into the 10 to 15 minutes, you'll be pleased to hear. So I will be looking at my notes from time to time. Thank you very much, Carol, for the opportunity to introduce myself. And thank you, Eugene, for your inspiring talk. I'm desperate to go to the burrito farm. When Carol first approached me to speak today, my reaction was that in the context of the think tank, my story is not really one of a climate change activist. Although these days I do spend quite some time rearranging the bins to make sure the recycling's in the right place, amongst several other personal efforts, I must say. And I was pleased to hear Eugene say that all of that is helpful. As Zontians, pardon me, as Zontians, we sometimes have to remind ourselves that we're all volunteers. We have other priorities in our lives, and for many of us, that would be family first, then work, and then Zonta. So I've chosen to tell you about myself under these 3 somewhat overlapping headings. I was born in Cairns, North Queensland, but grew up in Brisbane, where I was fortunate to live in a 3-generation household with my maternal grandmother. As an only child, this meant that I was not excluded from adult dinner conversations. I was influenced by many strong women in my family, not least my mother. As well as going back to work when I was in high school, she cared for her mother and then her husband after they each experienced strokes. She travelled long distances to work each day while caring for my dad, with some help from me and some amazing friendly neighbours. Karma allowed me to later care for her at home. She lived with my husband Peter and me from the age of 80 until she died at 99. My father was an accountant and a strong believer that everyone can do maths. He often used to stop me in the corridor and test my times tables. He was a strong advocate of education for girls as well as boys. This led to my attending a private girls' school with the same ethos. We were strenuously encouraged to do maths and sciences. I never felt the discrimination in regards to those subjects that was experienced by many other girls. As a result, at a time when most girls were expected to work in a bank or become a teacher or a nurse with minimal qualifications, I had the opportunity to attend university. Like many of my generation, I was the first in my family to do so and to become a pharmacist. I met my husband Peter at university. Many of you have met him, and we've been happily married for 52 years. We have 2 daughters. The older one lives in Adelaide with her husband and 3 daughters. And when her girls were little, the family lived in Melbourne, so my caring role kicked into place again. The younger one lives at the Gold Coast with her husband and 2 sons. COVID lockdowns have been tough on our family life, as many of you would appreciate. Peter and I enjoy good food and wine, regular visits to the theatre, thank goodness that's back on the agenda, and travel both in Australia and internationally. Looking forward to our convention in Hamburg. My career in pharmacy turned out quite differently from my expectation of working in community pharmacy. When our daughters were at primary school, I had the opportunity to undertake a PhD at the University of Queensland, which later led to an academic appointment at Monash University. I held that position for 20 years and still have an ongoing relationship with the faculty. Although our faculty comprised more males than females, Monash was, and still is, committed to striving for gender balance. I thoroughly enjoyed my traditional activities, teaching and research. An unexpected bonus was the chance to spend time with committed young people, both undergraduates and particularly postgraduates. I am definitely not the older person who laments the youth of today. This opinion has been reinforced over the years by involvement with the Zonta international education programs, especially young women in public affairs. What an inspiration those girls are. While at Monash, my friendships were enriched by people from a wide range of ethnicities and religions. I often think that people who profess distrust of those who are not like them, I feel that they have not got to know any of these people as individuals. One of my pharmacy mentors, Alistair Lloyd AO, was Registrar of the Pharmacy Board of Victoria and CEO of the Pharmaceutical Society. While that is a stellar achievement from a professional point of view, he was even more inspiring because of the work he and his wife Shirley did. They fostered more than 70 babies, many with disabilities, 2 of whom they adopted, as well as raising 3 children of their own. They were involved in fostering for over 50 years. I joined Zonta in 1971. It happened because I was in the right place at the right time. I came to the attention of the Zonta International representative who was chartering the Zonta Club of Brisbane because I was president of the Women Pharmacists Association at the time. In those days, membership was strictly by invitation and the organiser was seeking women at the top of their various fields. That was certainly not me. I was just lucky. At the first meeting of the fledgling club, the prospective members were invited to introduce ourselves to the group. Many of us were keen to sound worthy of being a Zontian. I remember feeling totally inadequate. Leneen Forde, who later became the president of Zonta International and then the Governor of Queensland and the recipient of an AC, made a deep impression on me when she identified herself in her first sentence as mother of 5, when the rest of us are trying to sound so important. Her caring attitude and empathetic people skills remained through all of her later high-profile positions. Leneen was an important mentor for me in Zonta, and I feel proud to count her as a friend. I was motivated to join Zonta by feeling that I had been very privileged to have always had a loving family, a roof over my head, food on the table, and a good education. I felt a desire, perhaps an obligation, to give something back to society. The fact that I could do this not only locally, but also globally through Zonta's partnership with the UN, I found compelling. Even if my efforts were a drop in the bucket, I was excited by the prospect of being able to feel that I could make a contribution. I was also inspired by Zonta's commitment to supporting women and girls with potential through its international education programs, which also involve clubs at the local level. I have a particular connection to the Young Women in Public Affairs Award, having served on the Zonta International Committee and having been privileged to read applications from girls around the world. Over the years, my ability to contribute to Zonta has waxed and waned. That's life. Through all the ups and downs, I have been supported with understanding by members of all 3 clubs that I have been involved with. Service, advocacy and fellowship are strong reasons for being a Zontian. Recently, as part of governance training, I was asked to share my motto for life. Quite an ask if you haven't really thought about it. I could not look further than the golden rule: treat others as you would wish to be treated. I think that sums it up. Thank you.
Well done.
That's really interesting, Kay. And so that was great.
Thank you.
That's so interesting. So you were the head of the Women's Pharmacy Guild in 1970s.
Well, yeah, funny story about that, because it was an organisation of women pharmacists, and I actually disbanded it because I'm not sure when it started, but it had been around for a while. And their 2 main things were to get equal pay for women pharmacists, which by the 1970s had already happened. And secondly, to provide access to continuing education for pharmacists, because that wasn't happening. But by the time I came on board as president, the Pharmaceutical Society was doing that in a much better way, because they were covering all pharmacists. And secondly, they were a larger organisation. So as I said, just in the right place at the right time, because I wasn't president for very long.
That's brilliant. Well, that's to our benefit. That's wonderful, Kay.
Thank you.
That's